Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of Mental Spelunking. In this episode, we continue to talk about the concept of control and acceptance in life, and we introduce the concept of the hula hoop, which allows you to figure out what you can control and what you can't. We also talk about evil and destruction, the importance of understanding one's why, the role of societal conditioning and labels, as well as different mindfulness practices and personal inventory techniques. We look forward to you listening, so let's get into the episode. All right, everybody, welcome to episode 14, take 2. Everybody does understand what I just said. What happened was we recorded this earlier, and for some odd reason, it didn't upload for Allison. So now we have to essentially do the whole thing over again, which means that whatever we talked about in the first take most likely won't end up in this take. So it's just too bad for you guys. How's everybody doing? How are you doing today, Allison?
Uh, I feel sleepy today. I'm okay. It's just sleepy. It's gray out right now, and so it's a little harder to feel awake. But I'm okay. How are you? But there's something I want to talk about, so I'm gonna ask you, and
No,
then
let's.
I'm gonna take it
It doesn't
back.
really matter how. It doesn't matter. Let's just get into it.
But I'm curious. How are you?
I'm good. Like things are good. Things are vibing. You know, cleaned my backyard, cleaned my front yard, helped Katie plant a bunch of things yesterday, took down my Christmas, we had these like cool like icicle Christmas lights that we just kind of
Mm.
kept up because it was nice. They were on a timer and they would just turn on every night. So it was kind of nice. We just took those down, cleaned all my patio furniture. So I got all, I like, when we cleaned everything, you put everything on our fake grass, and now everything's off the fake grass, so the backyard's starting to look good. So yeah, like it's spring and things are reblooming. So it's awesome.
Oh, that's great. So are things just starting to bloom where you are?
Things are just starting to bloom. Yeah, like the buds on
Mm.
the trees are just coming out, and I was just looking out just to see. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's kind of just budding right now. We have an apple tree in our front yard, and it's really
Mm.
pretty in the spring because it flowers. It's all pink and it's really pretty. So yeah, like it's spring is here, and I was like, there's kind of three or two things that I kind of anchor in my head with life that just kind of on repeat just happen every year. One is spring cleanup, which in the wintertime, I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna have to do that eventually. And then when you get into fall, it's Halloween, and my wife is obsessed with Halloween, and it's like, I gotta set this stuff up. And then after Halloween is like fall cleanup. And then the final thing is Christmas. And my wife's obsessed with Christmas. It's like, I got to put all that stuff up. So it's like, these are kind of the things that I'm just like, okay, like, consistently, this is what's my life is going to look like for the next 50 years or whatever it is.
Well, I love it. It's like a ceremony, a cyclical ceremony of
It is a very,
rituals.
yes, a very cyclical ceremony of rituals. And the spring cleanup includes all of my wife's planting and fixing our hostas in the corner and mulching and all that stuff. It's one of those things where you feel so good after you do it, but it's like sometimes when you're doing it, you're like, this, I just want this to be over. But, when you're done it, you're like, God, I feel so accomplished.
What's a hosta?
It's just a plant. It's
Oh,
like a plant. It's got like leaves on the bottom, and then like a little flower comes out on the top like that.
oh.
They're very good in the shade.
Hmm.
So like we have like pretty big pine trees in our backyard, and so we had to find plants that grew well in the shade, and hostas do really well in the shade.
Hmm. Okay.
We planted, I don't know, like 20 or 30 of them uh, 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and they came back last year. It was like when you plant like an annual or
Yeah.
when you plant an annual, and you're like, oh, I hope it comes back, and they all came back. You feel so good.
It is.
You're
It's
like,
the best
yes,
feeling.
it is the best feeling. It's like the spirit of that plant was like, I'm totally happy to come back to this backyard. But anyways, you want to talk about something, so like let's go. Like
Okay.
let's get it
Here's
because I don't
here's
want to lose the thread. I want you to go.
Oh, I won't lose the thread of this because it's reflecting on what happened and why perhaps the recording didn't work.
Sure, let's go.
Because at the end of our conversation last take, I stopped us and I said, "Oh, something doesn't feel right. Hold on. I misspoke." And I had this sense that a lot of what I had said was not actually accurate or true. And so I actually wasn't that surprised that it's not like I sabotaged the recording, but I wasn't that surprised
like
that it
you're like
didn't
the
work out.
spirits 100% sabotage the recording. They're like, we can't let Allison say this out into the ether, even though the goal of this podcast is to talk about stuff. So it's like, but anyways, keep going.
And what I was reflecting on, and it's not fully formed yet, but it's been moving through me since we spoke. I don't remember when that was. Was it 3 days ago? Something like that? 4 days ago?
It was on Wednesday.
Anyway, whenever it was. Yeah. Whenever that was.
We both had to get up at some ungodly hour to do this.
Yes. Yes. So I'm slowly waking up. But,
exactly.
Right. That there was a sense of not being curious in the conversation. So first of all, not being curious and being a lot more, this is what it is, or this is what I see. And I thought, oh, that's not actually in the spirit of our podcast. Our podcast is all about being curious. And I was giving kind of, no, this is it, sort of proclamations. And then I'm going to have a hard time putting this into words, but I realized somewhere in the middle of there that I was tired of making judgments about what anyone does with anything. And somehow I felt I had made a lot of judgment calls, or was in a place of just people do this or other people do that, and I think I'm done with that. So
I love that. I think that's awesome. I think like, so if you actually think about, so anyways, I want to know, is that we can talk about it, or are you still going? I want to make sure that you,
that's a good place to talk about it. There might be more that comes up later, but that's a good place.
I just want to make sure, because like sometimes, for everybody to understand, sometimes like Allison will just stop, and I can't tell if it's like the wheel's spinning still or if she's just like, I'm done. And so I'm like, okay. So I think that's really interesting because, so like in Al-Anon, one of the big things is that you don't have opinions on outside issues. Okay. And it's like on any outside issue, like, especially when you're at a meeting, like you're not going there and talking about religion or politics, or you're not gossiping or whatever it is, right? But when you break it down, and you think about how much we talk about people, places, and things, like just in general conversation, you know, you'd be like, oh, like I'll give you a really good example, okay? So the Toronto Maple Leafs just hired a new general manager. And I would say that the overwhelming majority of people believe it was not the best hire, based on the guy's track record and how it worked out. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are like I don't know, I'm trying to think of something that you would like. They're like the New York Yankees of hockey. It's like they're like the best, like they're the most storied franchise. They're the most valuable franchise. But like, so they have this like press conference, and it's like people are like this, like throwing darts, right? But like this guy hasn't even done anything yet. Now, I was fascinated by the whole thing because I'm like, this is so fascinating. Like, it's just like, how did they pick this? Whatever, right?
Hmm.
But the funny thing is that everybody's just kind of determined that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to fail, and that's it. Like everybody's like, this was something good hire. They're going to fail. They're like kind of useless, and it's just interesting how polarizing something as like some sports team picking a general manager can be. But just how opinionated people can get on it. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that I wasn't opinionated. Like I was opinionated. I have my views, but just when you think about it, and you extrapolate that little tiny little thing into everything, right? When you look at how our society, or when you look at how our society is kind of structured, or social structures and whatnot, right? Um, and you go look at a lot of the conversations you have, you talk about people a lot. Like, and you talk
Hmm.
about, and, and then if you stop talking about people, well, what do you talk about then? Because people are definitely not okay with silence. So you're kind of sitting there just kind of staring at one another, and everybody's like, oh my God, like, what have we gotten ourselves into? But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if that's the right through line, but
Hmm.
that's at least that's the through line that I got to.
Hmm. I, I suppose ideas would be what we talk about.
No, for sure we talk about ideas. I'm
Right.
just saying that in general. I'm saying like in general,
Uh,
like throughout the day, right? Like if you go and you count as a person, okay,
hmm.
how many times did I talk about like ideas, and how many times did I talk about people or whatever, and
Yeah.
then how much of that day was me being curious, and how much of that day was me just having a preconceived notion about what I believe, and this is what I'm going to keep saying. I'm not even going to listen to that what the other person's saying. I'm just going to just do that. What and the only reason
Or
I brought up the trying
even,
to go, you go.
no, as I say, or even listening without a preconceived notion, but then forming a notion about it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the reason I brought the Toronto Maple Leafs thing up was because I had a pretty formed opinion of it. I talked about it a lot with people just because, whatever, just fill your time. Let's talk about this. It's fun. But then I actually listened to the new GM talk on a show, and I was like, you know what? Like, I actually don't know, and how this guy's talking. It's actually how I would look at it, and it's interesting. It's just interesting how
Mm.
how quickly you form an opinion, and then you listen to someone, you're like, oh, actually, that opinion that I had was potentially wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have had that. But I agree with you. I think that one of the biggest. It's funny. Like in there's a guy named Christian Murty, I think his name is. I think that's his name. Anyways,
That's a
he
person.
as a person, yeah, as a person. And so he was talking about how you have to like give up all your like beliefs and all these things to kind of get to a space of, I don't know, being or whatever it is, right? And you have to give up your like religion, and you have to give up all these types of things, right? To kind of break it down because, you know, contrary to what everybody believes, all this is like somewhat of an experiment. Like everyone's like, well, this is my God given right. It's like, well, God did not show up here and like open this thing up and this walked through the door and was talking to people and was like, okay, everybody, here are your rights. Most important right, get a gun. It's like where'd that come from? Like it's like people get really obsessed about their God given rights. It's like, well, like it's 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 a concept, like freedom of speech and all this kind of stuff. It's a concept that we're kind of just iterating on and working on. Politics, it's like everybody's like, this is the best political system. It's like, based on what? It's an idea. Like, it's an idea. It's not real. It's an idea.
Yeah, we
Uh,
made it up.
all the shit, our whole money, it's an idea.
Yeah.
I'll there's a great scene in this movie Margin Call. It's with Jeremy Irons. I love Jeremy Irons. The guy is just, dude has a presence, and he's got a great voice, and he's got like the perfect slick back hair. And so what Margin Call's about is about, it's a little bit based on like the 2008 financial crisis, and it's based on a bank trying to figure out how they extricate themselves from owning way too much subprime debt. And anyways, there's like, it's near the end of the movie. Jeremy Irons is like the CEO of the bank, and he's talking to Kevin Spacey, and he like slams his hand on the table. He was like this. He like pulls out like a dollar bill or whatever. I can't remember if he pulls it up, but he kind of is. He's like, this is just an idea or something like that. He's like, this is just created so we don't kill each other for a piece of steak. It's true. Like, to all the dudes in Silicon Valley that listen, if they don't listen and whatnot, it's like, if the world went to shit, you're kind of fucked. You're all the guys that were picked last in dodgeball. You're not going to win. You're just not. I don't care how many billionaire bunkers you have. You didn't create it. You didn't build it yourself. There is a dude that had to build it for you, and I'm going to guarantee you he knows how to get in. Even without you. He's built a back way in. And here's the other thing. That guy probably can use a gun, and you probably can't. So it's one of those things where I just like laugh. It's like, so there's another movie about that really quickly, like Sin City. It's got Clive Owen in it, Rosario Dawson, and Mickey Rourke. But there's a scene where Clive Owen walks in, and he looks at Mickey Rourke, and he's talking. He's like, Mickey Rourke was born in the wrong age. He was born in the wrong time. It's like, if he was born back in the Roman times, he would have women crawling all over him, and he would have a freaking, a room full of gold. But in this time, he just is struggling. It's like, and Mickey Rourke's this huge man, like big and whatever it is, right? And that's like, you think about it, back in the day, like that was kind of it. So it's, yeah, like it's but anyways, back to Christian Murder. It's like, you kind of got to give it all up in order to kind of figure out, okay, like, what do I believe? And because you have all these little preconceived notions and little, entanglements here and there, and upbringing and all that kind of stuff. You get imprinted, and you have to kind of try slowly but surely, but try to remove all the imprints. And even after you've thought you've done all this work, there's still imprints. Like, shit, I believe that still. That's interesting. Anyways.
Yeah, that's perfect segue to the next thing that I was then letting marinate, which was there's when we, and I don't mean we as in me and you, but I mean we as in people who have gone through a process of trying to examine those beliefs, let's say, to whatever extent they've been examined. When we talk about that, but we're still in the middle of it, I think that's what I was noticing, is the discourse is kind of, it's like being in a stage of half molted. So it's like some of the stuff is gone, but some of the stuff is still there. It's kind of patchy, and it's a little, I don't know. I looked at it and I thought, oh, this isn't totally accurate. That's one thing. And then the other was, I don't know that I care anymore if anybody goes through this process or doesn't. Like, I'm not even sure I would recommend doing this. So that somehow feels important to say.
It's super important to say.
Right? Because like in the conversation, there's this bit of, I was noticing there was this bit, and it was coming from me, so it's nothing about you. It was this sort of bit of like judgment, unintentional judgment. And then realizing, well...
Judgment of what, though? Like, what were you judging?
I'm trying to remember the conversation. I I think it was the purity of somebody's actions, right? We were talking about something, whether it was ego driven or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
essence driven, right? So, I mean, one, who the fuck am I to be judging the purity of anybody's actions? So I don't want to be doing that anymore. And two, especially people I don't know, but about anybody at all, I can barely determine the purity of my own. And then, and then from that, I just thought, I don't know why I care if anybody goes through this process, because initially I kept thinking, oh, well, there's something so beautiful and amazing on the other side of it. That if you go through this and come out the other side, there's this freedom or this coming back to oneself. And that may be true, but I don't know that that's for everyone, that everyone cares about that, that that's their priority. Like what gives someone meaning in their life, it might be very different than what gives me meaning in my life. And starting from that place, I realized there's absolutely there's nowhere to go in terms of judgment. And I'll just finish this. I don't want to go on a whole thing,
No, no,
but
you should get on. You should totally get on your soapbox. Like I would like just
it's
you should go. This could be like a Senate filibuster where you're talking for like 50 minutes straight. I'd love it.
I don't think that's gonna happen. There's wait, hold on. I want to make sure I haven't lost it. Oh, it might have gone. Um, bear with me. Maybe it's something, this wasn't exactly it, but maybe if I start talking, it'll come. There's a sense of, I have no idea what is right, what is true, what is best. Most of the time, not even for myself. So, certainly not for anybody else. And yeah, I think I lost the thread of that last part I was going to say.
I'm really sorry. That's my fault.
No, it's not your fault. It's mine. I interrupted myself, so it obviously wasn't ready to come out. Uh, but anyway, yeah, I guess I don't know that I care anymore about what anyone is doing. Oh, I know there we go. I got to it. That there there's a it's often said in spiritual practices, or I've heard, let's say, because I'm hardly an expert, that everything is perfect as it is. And I
It's true.
kind of never saw that. Like I could convince myself that that was true, but I couldn't see it because I could see all the ways that something could be different and the potential and not that I can't see that anymore, but just there's something about the genuine not caring anymore about what anyone is doing, that I don't know to say it feels perfect, but it changed something. And it's not, obviously it's not finished because I'm so inarticulate about it. That's where I'm at. So I don't know. I'm in the middle of a molting stage, clearly. But I
So
wanted to
there,
share.
there's one thing that I do want to say to everybody listening. It's like Allison and I reserve the right to change our minds at any point. So anything that we said earlier, we can change our minds. Even if I
Yeah.
posted it, I can change my mind. I can say I don't believe that anymore. And here's why. So we're not going to be freeze framed, for one. Um, but two, all right. So there's all these like slogans in Al-Anon, like Let it begin with me. And first things first, things like that. Now, look, if any of you listening feel like you want to punch me in the face for saying that, that's all good, because that's kind of how I felt when I first came to Al-Anon and people would say these slogans. I'm like, first things first, let it begin with me. My life fucking blows. Like, everything sucks. No, like, I don't want to let it begin with me. Or like, or easy does it, or, let live and let God. It's like, no, my life sucks. I want, like, if you say that to me again, I'm going to punch you in the face. Anyways. So, but I'm bringing this up because it matters. And so, whatever. I've like, I'm, you're there and you kind of work on things and you talk to different people there and blah, blah, blah. But I remember I listened to this lady come to a speaker meeting, and she introduced me to this idea called the hula hoop. And I think I've talked about the hula hoop a little bit, where I'd say it, but people would be like, what's this guy talking about a hula hoop? He didn't give any background to what the hula hoop even means. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I apologize if I have. So if you have heard me talk about this, you can start to fast forward now. But the idea of a hula hoop, and I think what people are this is kind of we'll expand on. What's up, guys? Dude, you can't I'm recording this thing, bud. You can't do that. I'm sorry, bud. You got to get out. My dog, Kaiser, really quickly can open doors. Like, if there's a little crack in a door, he just opens it and dude, he's got such a good presence. He just shows up. He's like, what's up? I'm here. Look at me. Anyways, it's a really nice quality about his. Like, he's just such a regal looking dog. Anyway, so the hula hoop, right? And what she said was, she was like, look, one of the best places you can get to is you can start focusing on your hula hoop. Okay, so what's in your hula hoop and what's not? And this is kind of where you start to really, 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 really think and compartmentalize. Okay, what's mine and what's somebody else's? And you stop worrying about the stuff that's out of your control. I think one thing in the spiritual community that I do think is a real struggle is that people think they have control over things they actually don't. People will be like, well, I'm just going to manifest this. It's like, okay, but you're manifesting a change in your wife. And while you can write that down and you can talk about the relationship you want to have with your wife, the minute you're trying to talk about the way you want your wife to act, or the way you want your child to act, or the way you want your friends to act, that's more sorcery than anything. And people don't actually have that kind of control. And if you did have that kind of control, I don't really know if that's a good thing. I think that's probably a bad thing. If you look at all of the villains in any comic book, they all want control of the world, but what ends up hurting them is their obsession with control in some way, shape, or form. As Thanos says, I am inevitable. It's like, okay, great. That is when you say that I am inevitable, it means that you, like, no matter what happens, you're going to be able to do it. Okay. But so when you work on this concept of the hula hoop and you can start unpacking, okay, what's mine? What's somebody else's? Am I worrying about something that's out of my control? That doesn't mean that you don't participate, but it means that you're like, hey, you know what? I can't control if this person does this, or I can't control if this person says this, or I can't control if this outcome happens. And you start to kind of figure out, okay, how do I develop my own process in life? Like, what's my process? And that process evolves over time. I think Allison and I have talked about practices that her and I have done. I don't do a lot of those practices anymore. I went to Vipassana. I don't practice Vipassana every day. I meditated for 2 years straight. I don't really, I'll meditate if I need to, but I don't meditate every day as a rote thing to do. like you start to develop your inner process, and you start to focus on the things that you can control, and you stop focusing on things that you don't have any control of, because there's no point in thinking about them. And that is a real nice way to kind of start shedding all the stuff that's not yours. But when you think about life, we worry about a lot of stuff that isn't ours. Actually, if you think about a lot of the crises and the anxieties and the panics that exist in people's lives, it's usually about things they can't control. Like if Donald Trump becomes the president, the amount of people like losing their minds about that. It's like, you had no control over that. Did you vote? Yeah, well, there you go. That was your part in it. That was all you could do. Whatever happens, happens, unfortunately or fortunately. And I think that the other thing too, really quickly before we move on, or before you can, is the scariest thing is when you want to control an outcome based on the preferred thing that you want. Well, that doesn't always happen. That doesn't always work out that way. It just doesn't, right? Like that's when you hand things over to a higher power, you hand things over to the universe. It's not, I handed it over to the universe to fall in the way I want it to fall. Well, no. When you hand it over to the universe, you're like, I'm handing it over to the universe, accepting that this could go a multitude of different ways. But anyways, you can go.
Well, I have a question about that. So let's say let's say your existence is materially affected by whatever's going on that is outside of your control, in the sense of, I guess I want to add a caveat there that if you're in the US and you've overstayed your visa and your skin color is not white, like there's a reason to at least pay attention to what's going on. Right? It's not like you can control what you do with whatever's going on. You can't necessarily control the person. But there's something around the like, it's not just like paying no attention to what's happening. If you're a
No,
Jew in Nazi Germany, probably you should be paying attention to what's going on, you know?
yeah, no, I
Um,
agree. No, agreed. Or if you're a non-Hindu living in India, or you're a non-Han
mhm.
Chinese person living in China,
Yeah.
right? Like you should have an idea of what's going on. Like,
Maybe not
give it.
should. Sorry, I want to correct that again
Yeah,
because
sorry.
it's not accurate. But it's like to say, oh, this is outside of my control, so I'm not going to do anything about it. I have great respect for people who, in those situations, stand up to something that is harmful to them.
Sure. No, for
Right.
sure. I don't disagree.
So that's, so then I
That's a
think in the
choice,
case,
though.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Of
a
course it's a
choice, right?
choice.
Like you can sit there and say, "Hey, um, I'll give you a good example." Right? There's two good examples. Just one. I'll use just one. So there's a show Chernobyl. Okay, and it's about the Chernobyl nuclear plant melting down. And anyway, so the city of, I think it's called Pripyat, has to get evacuated. And so this woman shows up. So this woman, it pans to this scene with this woman and her cow, and she's milking this cow. And this Soviet army guy shows up. He's like, you have to leave. And she's like, I'm not going to leave. And the guy's like, no, no, no. Like, you don't get a choice. You don't get to leave. And she said, first the communists showed up, told me I had to leave. Then the Nazis showed up and told me I had to leave. So why am I going to leave now? Anyways, like the guy didn't really give her a choice. He kind of like put her onto a bus because there was nuclear radiation. But I think the point is like that person made a choice. It's like the Nazis showed up and like, you need to leave your farm. And she's like, no, I'm not leaving my farm. And then before that, when the Soviets showed up, you need to leave your farm. No, I'm not doing that. And I think the point is that you get a choice. Like, what's your choice? Like, are you going to put your head in the sand? Are you going to do something about it? Are you going to leave? Are you going like what are you going to do about it, right? And I think that, but I think to say that, to just say that you're going to worry about things that are out of your control, well, worrying is a different thing.
Yeah. And out of your control isn't totally, I think that's the point, is that it's out of your control to, or maybe out of your control to affect someone else's behavior. but you absolutely can have a choice about your own behavior, which then can affect someone else's behavior. That's why it just feels more murky than,
Well, it's like that there's
um,
that whole thing where it's like you want to change the world, change yourself. It's true. Like that is true. Like don't you want to change the world, change yourself. Changing yourself is I heard a really interesting thing. So Tupac Shakur had this thing that he used to that he this movement that he worked on called Thug Life, right? It was the most misunderstood movement. And I listened to him talk about it, and someone asked him, "Like, well, what does thug life mean?" And so he's like, "The hate you give lives in fucking everyone." And it's like, oh, that's a that makes a lot of sense, you know. So you want to change the world, change yourself. You hate everybody, that's going to emanate out into the world. Um, you know, like that's the thing. You have to. It's like I always go back to Al-Anon, right? Like it's like, you know, to do a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. Well, that doesn't just mean you only focus on the bad things. You focus on the good things too. Everybody's kind of got, you know, good qualities and qualities that they should improve. And when you write it all down, it's a good way for you to kind of put onto paper. Okay, hey, here are the things that are good about me. Here are the things that I can improve on. If you want, you don't have to. You can just say, you know what? I like being a gossip. That's fine. No one's saying that that's the wrong thing. But back to the spiritual community really quickly, that is my largest disdain with that community, is that they think that they have some moral authority to say that this is the right way. And no, it's not. I agree with what you said at the start. I don't recommend this path. You want to go on it, I'm happy to help you, and I'm happy to be there for you. I'm happy to talk to you about it. But in no way, shape, or form would I tell people to go through what I went through. In no way, shape, or form. No. It's not the easiest path. And in a way, it's like an endless path, right? Because, you know, I don't know, like you're constantly upgrading your software, you know? And it's actually kind of a little bit like this little iPhone. Okay? Because you upgrade your software to the point where like you actually have to physically change in a way, because, you know, Apple, the little insidious company they are, the software updates so much that you can't even use the phone eventually. So you update your software so much, you're like, oh my God, I got to change like all of this now, right? Like you just like everything's, you know, you have to upgrade. So, you know, it's not the easiest path. Anyways, that's my little rant.
I'm just not even sure anymore there's a point to doing it. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So you said something just a few minutes ago about there are things that are good, I mean, doing the moral inventory, and things that you should improve.
No, not should. You can improve. If you want,
But,
you can improve. If you want.
and I'm actually just even wondering, like, just trying to go all the way back. Is that even true?
What do you
Is
mean
that
is that
true?
even true?
I mean, is it true? Like, I'm just
Like
asking a
what?
question.
Like
Like, is
that
it?
for me it's true. For me it's true. Like having these down, and then when you go to step 6 and 7, which is um you know, became willing to have God remove your defects of character, and then humbly ask him to remove your defects of character. Like I'm more than happy to have my higher power show in me actions that I could change if I wanted to change them. Because to me, why not? Why not try to? Why not try to work on those things? That's just for me, though. Like I agree with what you're saying. Like you don't have to do any of this stuff. You can just go around and exist if that's what you want to do. Like no one's telling you what to do. I think that's the point. You got to derive meaning in your life how you want to derive meaning. There's no right way to do anything.
Hmm. Sorry, there's a few things that are coming all at once, so I need a second to split them apart to put into words. Um, I guess this is more philosophical than maybe I had intended today to go, but it's on my mind, and I appreciate your talking about it. Um, I I guess it's in some ways without a lot of care, and maybe with trying to do all of this in the context of still living in our society. I sometimes wonder if the things that we're so focused on improving are not issues at all. Like how much of what we think needs to be improved is actually conditioning. And then this brings me back to the point of why even do this in the first place. And there's a sense I have that I know why I started doing this in the first place, but I'm not sure that why is apparent aside from just wanting to be better or wanting more things or want it's like a want that's maybe not
Yeah, this is so funny.
true,
Not
right?
funny in a
Do you know
bad
what I
way.
mean?
Yeah, okay, so. Okay, so like, okay, I want to talk about concept then.
Okay.
So there's like this kid that I mentor, and anyways, I'm not going to go into the specifics of what was going on, but I'll tell you what the gist of what I kind of talked to him about was, and I think this is actually important for anybody. Okay, so you have to figure out what your why is in the world, like honestly. And there's not just one why. There's your short-term why, there's your medium-term why, your long-term why. Like I talked about your unconscious current, your conscious current, your subconscious current, and you can have all those align and you can feel really good. Um, but where you're going in life, the why is how you get out of bed, and the why is extremely important. The short term why, the medium term why, the long term why. The short term why could be I need to pay rent. That's fine. That's a pretty damn good reason to get up and go do something. Uh, but as you start to climb Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you start to deal with kind of the bottom two parts of that pyramid, the why becomes even more important, because there's no right way to do things. There's no reason to do things. There are people in our world that throw an oblong ball for a living, literally, and they get paid $40 million to do it. Think about that. Someone literally throws an oblong ball down a field for a living and makes tens of millions of dollars to do this. You got to really develop your why as to why you're going to do that for your life. By the way, this person gets tackled by people who are way bigger than him, and he can essentially feel like he ran into a brick wall when he gets tackled. So, the point that I'm trying to make is that you have to figure out deep down, what is my why? Why am I doing this? Why am I in my job? Why do I live in this city? Why do I still talk to my idiot sister that is an alcoholic? Like it really matters, right? And that's kind of how your hula hoop, the process inside your own hula hoop gets more refined, is what is my why? So maybe that's not the through line you were talking about. I just want to say that.
No, it's good. It's what started me on questioning things and trying to explore myself and better understand my behavior, was asking that question why over and over and over again. So yeah, from a place of curiosity, not from a place of wanting an outcome or wanting it to look a certain way. I'm sensing I've become more sensitive to this the more I spend time in different communities where the why isn't coming from the heart of of a person. The why is coming from external mirroring, and I say that without judgment, just noticing that it's different, and the outcome then looks different. And then I just wonder, is this even useful at all when the why is right, when the why is to be really calm all the time, for example. I met someone recently who, anytime they feel something they don't like, they have a process for removing that feeling. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. I, I love that someone thought of that. It just would never, that would never occur to me. And then I wonder, oh, I wonder why, that's
Well, and
motivation.
I think it goes back to, right, like what I might deem a part of my character that I want to improve, let's say, someone might not deem that a problem,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, we sit there and say, well, this feeling is bad. Like, we'll use an example, like anxiety. People are like, I shouldn't be in anxiety. I remember one of the most freeing things I learned from somebody was that the anxiety is it's just a signal. That's all it is. It's just trying to get you to be aware of something. What do you need to be aware of? Because I spent a long time trying to be like not feel those things, right? And then
Yeah.
the other thing too is it's like where people be like, well, you shouldn't be mad, or you shouldn't do this, or you should get rid of your anger, or you should only want to be happy. I actually think that if you were happy all the time, you would end up in like the Garden of Eden. Not in a good way though, because you'd have no perspective. The whole reason why Adam and Eve knew it was the Garden of Eden is because they got kicked out. They had no perspective of how great this place was. They're like, oh, this is so like whatever. Then they get kicked out. They're like, why? What the hell happened? Like, this was not cool. We got tricked by that snake. Like we got tricked by the snake to tell us to eat to tell you to eat the apple, and then we got kicked out. And now we're in this like not Garden of Eden. Like that's hard. Um, And so, and by the way, like you gotta love the religious zealots who are like, this is why women are bad. They ate the forbidden fruit. It's like people have been living on that for a long time.
Yes, women get blamed a lot for that.
They do, they
Yes.
do. But no, like I think this is a really important conversation because I think, look, I want to preface something really quickly. So Allison will always be like, I'm not trying to judge, but I'm just going to make a blanket statement. Like at the end of the day, we're not coming from a place of trying to judge anybody. Okay. If we do, it's a mistake and it's not something that we're trying to do. We're on here exploring esoteric at times, philosophical things, trying to use movies and whatnot to try and explain these esoteric and philosophical things. And if we offend someone, you know what? It was an accident. It wasn't on purpose. And if we did, we're sorry. But at the end of the day, I don't want us every single time to be like, I'm not trying to be mean or I'm not judging people because at the end of the day, we're not. Like I feel like our energy in this thing is as pure as we can make it, and I just want to say that. So, anyways, you can go, Allison.
Hmm. Oh, when you were speaking about the Garden of Eden, something came to my mind that I've also been thinking about, which is the concept of evil, in that it seems it seems like people no. It seems like we're able to recite that farmer story a lot to each other. I hear that farmer story a lot. If you're not familiar with the farmer story, it's a story of I think it was a Chinese farmer, and it's a series of things that happen to him and his family, and the villagers will say to him, "Oh, that's so good," or "Oh, that's so bad." And every time he basically says good or bad, like who can tell or who can say or who knows. And then the next thing happens, and it just goes back and forth. And the idea is equanimity,
Yeah.
yeah, in in the face of whatever's happening. And then there's this. So that seems fine when it's, oh, it could be good news or it could be bad news. But then there's this evil extra bit, which is part of the Garden of Eden story, evil. And I was reflecting on how every time I hear something called evil, it's destructive. And there's almost this natural aversion to destruction, to change that's perceived as destructive. And as you were describing the story of Adam and Eve being kicked out of the garden, it not only sets up the tension between what the experience of the garden and the experience of not the garden, right, to show how one was different than the other, but it also destroys something in the process, and hence evil. And I'm kind of curious because I it's just been floating around in the ether around me. Does that track? Does that seem like it's approaching something that feels true? Can you see that?
What do you mean? Like
Can you
what?
see that the evil as being destructive, or is there something I'm missing?
Well, I don't know. I don't really know if there's any evil in, like, I don't perceive Adam and Eve to be evil. I perceive Adam and Eve to be more of like a understanding of perspective. Like you don't know where you are until you. It's like, does a fish really know what's in water? Like there's that great meme where like there's like some dolphins like, man, the water's nice today, and the fish looks at the other fish like, what the hell's water? Like like do you really know? Right? Like I would say that how I got into spirituality, I thought it was the right way, but then when I started doing it a different way, I was like, oh, actually that way was wrong for me. It wasn't right for me. That's not what I wanted, right? Um, but I always there's a where was it? I can't remember where I heard this, but it's like, you have two armies. Okay, you got two armies and they're fighting, and both are saying, yeah, God told me to fight this war, right? Well, okay, but how can is that true? Like, is that just a justification? Like, are you just saying God told me to go? Like, maybe he didn't. I don't know. Like, I don't know, right? Like, like, how do you know? But even with the evil thing, though, right? Um, I think that term gets like tossed around a lot. Um, it's like that person's evil. It's like, well, is it evil because you don't like what he's doing and it's affecting you, or is it like? But if you ask somebody else, that person might be benevolent. Like, like it's such a polarizing thing to say, right? Like, what is actually uh, like like in my opinion, like evil is where like you are on purpose inflicting pain on somebody else just for the sake of inflicting pain. Like when you listen to like people like Ed Kemper talk, or Ted Bundy, or Ed Kemper was like this guy called the co-ed killer. He was a serial killer. And or Ted Bundy, or these like different serial killers. When you like listen to them talk, you're like, okay, like you exist in this world just to kill people. That's very interesting. But like even then, I don't know. Like that to me, where I'm like, okay, like if you're legitimately your sole goal is to just inflict pain on somebody else, then that's probably a pretty good pathway towards it's probably evil. But even then, I don't know. It's I don't know. We're in this weird philosophical like episode. People are either gonna fucking hate this episode, like holy shit, this is just like way too esoteric, or they're like, wow, this is like really interesting. Like it's this will be a polarizing episode in its own right. People be like, oh my god. People be talking about this and be like, oh my god, like you haven't started mental splunking, skip episode 14. Or they might say just go right to episode 14. You don't have to listen to the first 13 episodes.
This is a glimpse to what my day feels like all the time. These are the sorts of things that I enjoy, but contemplating isn't even the right word because it sounds all heady, but I enjoy kind of allowing in the head, but then also to feel through
Like,
and
what's your view on
sense.
evil then? Like, because it's a hard concept to like really talk about.
It's what I said. I mean, I don't know. I'm still working through it. I had this sense of that, trying to get at the root of why anybody would call something evil, and just noticing this pattern of destruction, and then wondering if it's our discomfort with destruction that has us labeling something as evil. And that could explain why evil doesn't have a universally understood. We're not always, not everybody will look at something and go, oh, yeah, I definitely would categorize that as evil, because it comes from differing perspectives of what is destructive. But I don't know. It's just a working theory, because I guess because it comes up a lot, oddly, and it comes up pretty often in in this in the climate we live in right now. People throw that, or that word is thrown around a lot by various people.
Or like people will be like, "You're fascist." It's like, okay, um, like maybe, maybe not. You know, like when you go read about uh, like Nazi Germany, let's say, right? Um, you're like, okay, like that's like a good encapsulation of like what fascism is, right? Um, but then you go look at like what like extreme communism was, which was Soviet Union, right? And they're like they're kind of like the same thing. They go about things a little differently, but they kind of have the same tenets. A lot of the time, right? Like I had a friend of mine explain horseshoe theory to me, and he's like the extremes. Like if you look at a horseshoe, right? Like the two ends of the horseshoe are very close to one another, and that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like what he says about extreme politics on either left or right. It's like they're the same thing. They just go about things in a different way, and which I thought was an interesting kind of
Mm-hmm.
point of view. Right? People will just label things like that or label things like this. There's like a lot of labels that get thrown out. Right? I think that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in our world today. There's just a lot of labeling. You're this,
Yeah.
and it's just like paintbrush. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, again, it's actually very interesting. Like back to what I talked about with the Toronto Maple Leafs GM, right? There was just this carte blanche, like
Mm-hmm.
this is what this is going to be, and like the guy hasn't even done anything yet. He hasn't like he could be an abject failure or he could be an unbelievable success. You don't know, but it's just like done this. And maybe that's just how society's structured now, based on social media and clickbait and just trying to get people riled up to listen about something. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I think if you go look at the social media trials of Facebook and Google in California, like you can see how insidious these companies are and how they get you to keep using their products. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And the example of fascist, my sense is that that has an actual definition, and
It
you could
does.
argue. Whereas I'm not sure. I don't know
Evil
that we
does.
have, right. I mean, it must have a definition. The dictionary must define it, but I'm not sure that it's quite as obvious. But maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, I think it's the same idea as a terrorist.
Yeah, there you go. That seems feels similar.
Like I think it's a terrorist is the same idea, right? Like how do you define that? You know, we think we're the good guys, but maybe the other people think that we're terrorists. Like I don't know. Like who knows? Right? I think that's
Mm,
another one that's a tough one.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. So anyway, yeah, welcome to a small window inside of what goes on in my mind on a regular
Exactly.
basis.
It's like we should honestly. I know what I know what I'm going to call this episode. It's going to be great. I'm going to call this episode "Come Inside My Brain."
It is called mental spelunking.
It is called mental spelunking. Like we're literally like there's like a movie called Being John Malkovich, and it's all about this. It's like people living
Mm.
inside John Malkovich's brain. It's pretty funny. But no, I think that some of these concepts are really. I think like if you go back to like at least my view, the through line, right? When you start focusing on your own hula hoop, and this does not mean that you're like a narcissist or a sociopath where all you focus on is there you go. You now look like David Guetta. This is what he does. It's like
I don't know who
yeah.
that
It's like
is. But they hurt after a while.
maybe we should invest in some new headphones then.
I'm not sure that it's the headphones' problem because I have a small head, so it's not like they're pinching. It's just, I think after a while, something on my head just is this,
Um,
you know? But anyway, sorry, continue
no, it's all good. That's more fun to like pretend like
there.
I'm looking like David Guetta. There you go. Looking like a DJ.
See that they need to air out the backs of my ears a minute.
That's fair, but I think the through line of like when you focus on your own hula hoop, and as I said, not being a narcissist, not being a sociopath, like because in your own hula hoop, right, you're thinking because you go back to this is kind of where the steps are really good, where you go back to like step 10, which is like continue to take personal inventory and when you were wrong, promptly admitted it. Like you have to know, like you'll know when you were wrong. Um, but when you focus on your own hula hoop, right, a lot of this stuff kind of goes by the wayside because you sit there and say to yourself, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Like, this is happening. Okay, what am I going to do about it? Right? I can sit here and get mad about it and yell about it and go to every freaking coffee shop and bar and everything and then talk about it and be mad about it and really work myself up. Or I can say, hey, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'll give
Mm.
you a good example. Okay. So, when Katie and I first moved to the United States, we lived in Oregon, right? Now, like, I didn't know that much about Oregon before I moved there, but Portland's a really beautiful city. I really like it. It's got great, Oregon's a beautiful state, great nature. Like, Oregon's Oregon's such a great state that literally 95% or 90% of the population lives in like one little spot in the northwest corner, which is Portland. The rest of the people are just scattered around the state. So there's just a lot of, you know, unencumbered nature. But what I didn't realize was that Oregon's open carry. It's an open carry state. And, you know, that was unsettling to me. Like, it's an unsettling thing to just see a dude walking down the street with a butt of a shotgun hanging out of his backpack. That's just like normal. Um, but the other oddity of Oregon was that it's open carry, but they had no cops. It's like this is very weird. It's like you just have people that can just walk around with guns strapped on them, but there's like no police. And like it's like it's a very odd thing to me, you know. And after leaving the States, it was like, okay, hey, you know what? I did that. I had that experience, but you know what? I don't think I need to have that experience again. The point being is that it's my choice, right? I can sit there and complain about the state being open carry and all this kind of stuff, or it's like you have to accept things that you can't change. I can't change that. That exists. Even if I tried to change it and I tried to, I ran for politics and I got into the state legislature and blah, 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 I still might not be able to do it, right? Like there are so many things that are out of your control. So, at least with the hula hoop thing and the why thing, right? You get to determine, okay, why am I doing something? What am I doing it for? What's my short-term reason why I'm doing it? What's my medium-term reason? What's my long-term reason why I'm doing something? Okay, well, then you get to determine it. So,
As you're talking about that, there's two things that come to mind. The first is that the whole point in adopting that perspective in the first place is because something feels uncomfortable, right? That you're noticing either frustration or anger or some emotion that feels uncomfortable. And that's in some ways, it seems like those are what drive a lot of the desire for new perspectives or for making changes to one's own way of living. And then the second thing is to say that it seems to me that if you were to be in Oregon and really disturbed by the open carry policy, that so much so that it was pulling on you to do something about it, then why not try to make a difference and
No, but
change, right?
that's your choice, right? That's a
Yeah.
why, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is why the why thing is really important, right? You have to derive meaning from your life. You have to figure out why you do anything. I would say that I wouldn't tell people to I wouldn't say to people that the reason why you focus on your own hula hoop is to not feel uncomfortability. You're going to feel uncomfortability, period, full stop. It's where how I view the focusing on things that are out of my control. It's like a dog chasing its tail. It's like no matter what I do, like I'm just going to be
Mm.
spinning and spinning and spinning for no
Mm.
apparent reason. It's like, okay, well, is there anything in my control to change this? If there is, okay, what am I going to do about it? If there isn't, it's like, okay, well then I have to, you go from uncomfortability to acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to kind of do that through line, which is the acceptance part's really important. Like I had to accept that this was open carry and I did. It's like, okay, great. Like I might see a gun, might see this, whatever, right? Like you have to
Mm.
accept the things you can't change. Um, like if you feel it in yourself that you're like, I want to like enact gun control and all this kind of stuff, great, go do that. There's no one saying that you shouldn't. That's just, that just wasn't
Mm.
my why for living in
Was it for
Oregon, which
you?
was, that wasn't what I'm there to do. Um,
Mm.
you know, but I also think too, right? Like, I think it's interesting when people leave states and they're like, I moved from California to Texas. They're like, well, I need to change everything about Texas. It's like, well, why? Like, what makes you think that it's bad there? Like, it might be bad in your idea, but it might not be bad. Like, it goes back to your exact thing. It's like, is it true? Is this actually true? Like, is this like, am I just judging people that I don't like or whatever it is, right? Like, how
Mm.
do you know, how can you determine what is good for everybody?
Mm. I met this woman called Anita Sanchez. I think that's her name. Well, I know her name is Anita Sanchez. It might have other words though after it. She might have more names in addition to that. In any case, she's a really interesting and open-hearted person. But I realize I don't even need to say that about her. I don't need to characterize her. She and I did a workshop yesterday, and she was sharing some of the perspective of the indigenous communities of which she's a part. And I wanted to share it because it's related to our conversation, and it involves a circle. So every time you say hula hoop, I keep imagining this circle. She gave the perspective of good medicine and bad medicine. So it's also kind of related to this good and bad thing that we talked about earlier. And she said that the perspective is, so we start with a circle. So you put your hands like this, kind of out in front. And here, I have to back up like this. So a circle like this. And this side represents people, this side represents nature, and the connection represents spirit. And that good medicine is something that strengthens and upholds the circle. So it benefits the people, nature, spirit. And bad medicine doesn't. And I love these phrases of good, or not, I shouldn't say that. No. The phrases of good and bad medicine I find can be helpful in thinking about things from that perspective, because the it I don't know. I've just was playing with it yesterday and I found it helpful. So I'm not going to say anything more. Just if you think it might be helpful to try it on. And then the other thing she said that I really appreciated was she said, because there's no past, present, future really in those cultures, that the perspective is to look at it not only for now, the people, the nature, and the spirit, but to go forward 7 generations in all directions. So good medicine is beneficial to the people for 7 generations, to the nature for 7 generations, to the spirit for 7 generations, forward and backward. And while that's quite prescriptive or feels a bit prescriptive in its approach, I found it to be just fun to be trying on for the last 24 hours. So it reminded me, it's a circle. It's a different kind of hula hoop because it's one that involves everything. It's a kind of an all-encompassing one. And just thinking about things from that perspective made me wonder, I wonder what else I'll see that's different trying that on. So I wanted to share it because I thought it was interesting.
That's awesome. I think at some point in these podcasts, Allison just won't even speak anymore. She'll just nod.
I spoke a lot today, no?
No, I'm just saying that, like, because you're like, well, I can't say, I don't want to. You're like, you're like, I am going to just live and figure out how I can actually get this out without all the conditioning on myself. And you're just like, I'm just gonna not say anything for a bit.
Yeah,
but it's true though. But it's true though, right? When you started talking about Anita Sanchez, you're like, she's a great person and whatnot. Like, people do this all the time. I remember I was talking to a person, and they're like, well, this person's a liberal. And I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Like, or this person's a conservative. What does this have to do? Like, why does this matter? Like, is this going to make me like the person more or less? Is this what you think in your head? Or it's like, or this person's a good person. It's like, okay, but like, in your opinion, she's a good person. Like, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, but these are all little colloquial things we do to try and gain acceptance about what we're about to say, right? It's like we try to preface it before so that people sit there and say, okay, well, I'm now going to listen to what you have to say because you've prefaced it.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's like, who cares? And I'm not saying that I don't do this. I do this, but it's just funny. It's just funny. When do you have, like, it's 7:48 where you're at. So I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of the time.
I have to go. I have a call at 8. So I would say the next is 5 minutes or so would be good.
Okay, sounds good. So I think we'll end it there. Really appreciate that. I hope, I actually found this quite fun. It was very fun because sometimes, like, you have to understand that this is kind of part of the metamorphosis of growing, right? It's like, you're upgrading when you're not upgrading, but when you're changing, right? These are the things that you can go through, right? You start to contemplate, like, okay, what am I doing and what do I believe, and this can change multiple times over your lifetime. And even if you look back and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that. It's like, that was important during that time for you in some way, shape, or form. There is no, I agree with Allison, there is no real good or bad. It's just, okay, these are the qualities that you have. Do you want to change them or not? And, or do you want to change your job or not? Or do you want to change where you live or not? Or whatever it is, right? It's all part of a process that is living on this earth, which can be unbelievably awesome, and it can also be extremely trying. And it's all part of that process. So, we really appreciate you listening to this one because, this was definitely more of a thought experiment than anything. And if not, you do not need to come inside our brain, and you can just say, I'm never listening to episode 14 ever again. And I'm just going to skip that one going forward. So we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.